What's going on, folks? Welcome to the bar. Today we're going to be talking about Kaiju No. 8 Chapter 15. And I noticed as of last week's reaction, everyone still really isn't used to the every 3-week hiatus. So pretty much last week we had what the author and illustrator Naoya Matsumoto calls the Kaiju Showcase. And every off week we get colorful spreads of all of our favorite characters from Kaiju No. 8. But since Chapter 15 is this week, it means another 3 weeks of Kaiju No. 8 is loaded up and your favorite TV-headed bartender had to dive into it. So if you haven't read the most recent chapter, usually the 3 most recent chapters are available to be read for free on Viz. So do yourself a solid, hit that subscribe button, read the most recent chapter, and then head on back. I say this not only because I'm going to spoil up-to-date content for Kaiju No. 8, but I want you to understand the entire story and not just get my interpretation. Then afterward, come on back to the bar, grab a drink, and let me know your theory. Alright, let's go ahead inside.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
So, Chapter 15 starts off with our buddies, the disposal team. They're watching and taking in the show, wondering if Reno and Kafka are out there, when one of the crew appears to tell them that the newbie has gone missing once again. Now, the dramatic irony is, we all know who that newbie on the disposal team really is, and he's standing right in front of Iharu and Reno. And you see, back in Chapter 14, we were left with Reno and Iharu staring down that particular guy, and we know from the Kaiju entrance exam that he is the Humanoid Kaiju. The two officers then approach the weird guy rocking the disposal crew jumpsuit, and he's sitting there thinking to himself out loud about how the person ruined his idea to have this Yoju split off from itself. Like, that's friggin' terrifying. This thing was gonna reproduce and start splitting off from itself like crazy. Now, innately, Reno's instincts kind of just keep him, like, at a distance from this situation, while Iharu's hubris kind of just thinks that this is just some random crew member wandering too far away from his disposal unit. And as this situation is unfolding, Reno is just starting to feel really uneasy and is really skeptical about this. I mean, this dude in the disposal jumpsuit is talking about bringing Kaiju back to life. And we know that Reno really isn't a dumb character, so we know that he knows what's up. Then the Humanoid Kaiju does some crazy John Carpenter's The Thing type spooky season shit and stares them down and points at Iharu. The Humanoid Kaiju's hand then begins to mutate and then punches a hole clean through Iharu's chest, similar to how it happened to Kikoru. The Humanoid Kaiju comments on his accuracy because inside of this human form of his, it's shit. Now, Iharu begins to freak out, but luckily he has someone like Reno on his side that is like, yo dude, use your suit's function, bind your wounds, we have to really handle this situation right now, I'm not trying to die. And my biggest takeaway from this entire scene is just how Reno is handling it, man. I mean, he's completely taking control of this entire situation. And while we're spewing praise for Reno, there is one particular part that I really gotta harp on, and it's the fact that Reno is already looking ahead of this particular situation. I mean, by him saying that if there are other Humanoid Kaiju aside from Kafka, you now have to understand that there's only a finite amount of people that you can trust within this manga. This story is going from zero to Attack on Titan very quickly. You don't know who could possibly be who. And the fact that this guy can speak, comprehend thought, expression, and civilized technology, I can't help but think to myself that the Kaiju might not just be controlled by a hive mind. But then the worker goes full on Cronenberg and mutates into the Humanoid Kaiju that Reno didn't exactly encounter, but he learned about. Also, I guess this is where the second part of my wild tangent kicks in, where I talk about the Kaiju and their possible culture and existence. And the reason why I'm even talking about this is because in this chapter, the Kaiju looks at the two officers and says that since his plans are kaput, he would hate to go back from the human world empty-handed, which means that he should definitely bring back an officer as a living sample. I mean, besides the fact that this causes Reno and Iharu to freak the fuck out, what does this mean for their culture? What does this mean for the whole existence of Kaiju? Kaijus have evolved to a degree to become technologically advanced in this war/hunt, whatever they have going on. And the reason why I say hunt is because the reason why Reno and Iharu can't radio out for help is because the Kaiju emits some sort of pulse that negates any form of radio contact. The Kaiju then states that this space that he generates helps him stay hidden in the human world, and this little pocket exceedingly works well when he hunts. And that's where we pause. Hunting? We got Godzilla meets Predator meets Bleach. And look, let's consolidate this information before we go any further and the shit hits the fan. First, we can assume that a kaiju resistance exists. Kafka's kaiju explicitly states that it was looking for him, meaning Kafka was chosen by that kaiju upon seeing Kafka save Reno's life. 2, this humanoid kaiju is probably only like a lieutenant he's sent to the human world, as he referred to it as, to gain data against their enemies. The invasion of the kaiju has to stem from a goal, whether it be resources, a fabricated war, or some grandiose human hunt. But all of this going on, it has to have been enough that a certain amount of kaiju themselves had to have questioned what side they were on and built a resistance. This kaiju spoke, and it turned Kafka into the strongest kaiju on record. And 3, the kaiju may see the human world as a hunting ground, and the advanced kaiju society sees human as nothing but lambs for the slaughter, which could totally explain why some kaiju are capable of free thought. And it could be that some of them are like, yo, we're just hunting them, why don't we just experiment on them too? And on the flip side of that, there could be a bunch of them that are like, yo, why are we experimenting on humans? Let's just go to the human world and help them out without them knowing and just kind of coexist. But yeah, rant over. So the humanoid kaiju begins popping off, and Reno gets pretty shot up. And despite all of this, we really see the results of Reno's training. We see that Reno's able to pay attention enough that he can dodge some of the humanoid kaiju's hits to a degree. I mean, even the humanoid kaiju says that he's actually pretty impressed with Reno, and he tries to fire one more pot shot to take out Reno. But enough is enough, and Reno is done being fooled, and he dodges it completely. And before the kaiju can fire off additional shots, gunshots begin to clap off. The kaiju begins to freeze from the bullets fired, and what's really awesome to see is that the bullet actually did something. The freeze round was able to crack the humanoid kaiju's exoskeleton. And who's standing there amongst the gunsmoke? Reno. Look at that man, shot up the shit. He assesses the moment and tells Iharu to go get reinforcements. And Iharu is like, what the fuck, man, I'm the stronger of the two, you should be running. And the humanoid kaiju takes advantage of his dawdling and tries to kill Iharu. Because up until now, the thing that everyone in the defense force thought was a mindless monster has just turned out to be a sentient life form that's capable of recognizing a hierarchy, killing an escapee, and kidnapping the lone survivor. Like, shit has officially popped off here in Kaiju No. 8 land. Luckily though, Reno was a step ahead of our bad guy, and instead of getting a massive hole through his heart, Iharu only loses part of his shoulder. But Reno isn't done taking a page out of the Kafka playbook. He looks at Iharu and tells him to go. He needs to go, please. And Iharu's eyes finally understand, and Reno stares down the enemy, alone. The chapter ends with Reno acknowledging the situation that he's in pretty much doesn't get scarier than this, which will probably be dwarfed in the future, but for now, when it comes to this situation, Reno is staring down the thing that took down Shinomiya, and he probably doesn't stand a chance. We see inside of Reno's head that the reason why he sent Iharu away was because it was the same type of executive action Kafka did to him. If Reno wants to be the officer that lays down their life for the sake of others, no matter the cost, this is the moment. Right now, he's got a semi-upper hand and he could stall for a few minutes. Though if this pans out like it did when Kafka saved Reno in the same way, I think Iharu might stick around to save Reno. I mean, if it does kind of pan out that way, we can say that Kafka's values are spreading to the recruits. As for how Kafka will play in this entire situation, I really don't think that his kaiju sense is going to get jammed. If anything, if a high-ranking kaiju flexes their power, Kafka's going to pretty much know immediately. And if anything, Kafka might become more suspicious if Reno's comm cuts out the same time that he feels that a kaiju might be near. So for all we know, the coming chapter could just be last week's chapter, but this time it's from the point of view of Kafka. And my big theory is I think that Kafka might possibly escape by this situation without bringing out the big guy. I mean, the two things for this arc that have been rubbed in front of our faces is that Reno doesn't want Kafka to bring out the kaiju, and that Hoshina has these blades that expertise in taking down mid-sized to miniature threats. So unless Kafka sneaks away because he realizes Reno is in trouble, at this point I think it's more likely that Hoshina takes on the humanoid kaiju. But like I've said before, the story is called Kaiju No. 8, and for all we know, some crazy shit goes down in the future with a bunch of people looking at Kafka in the face and being like, oh wait, when did you become a kaiju? I've been a kaiju since 2008. But yeah, there's certainly some fishy shit going on here, and like I said, there's clearly a hierarchy or a possible chain of command for the kaiju. And as for Reno's death flags, I think that we are in the clear. I don't think that he's going to die, especially because it seems that the Humanoid Kaiju wants somebody alive. And if anything, if he gets captured, holy shit, that would be crazy. And if anybody is in jeopardy, I would think it's possibly Iharu or maybe even Vice Captain Hoshina. And look, a typical type of shonen archetype story would tell us that, look, Reno is gonna lose, but before he loses, I really hope that we get some cool little power boost moment, you know? I really want to know the capacity of what the suits can actually do. Like, they're binding wounds and making people more durable, so I wonder if they could physically morph into something more kaiju-esque when they reach 100%. You know, a lot of the tech is reverse engineered, so it'll be interesting to see what'll happen when the story gets a little bit older. But I think in general, this is a pretty awesome chapter. We stan Reno, yo. Other than that, I think that's it for this week's Kaiju number 8 recap and review. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button, and remember, next Saturday is my 24-hour stream for charity here on YouTube. So, be sure to clear your schedule, and remember, wash your friggin' hands. I'm out of here. Cheers.